Welcome back to Close Up. 2023 was an up and down year for the issue of cannabis legalization at the State House. The debate in the legislature continues, and we now know more about some of the conditions the governor has if he's going to sign a bill. Here this morning to discuss are two state senators who just wrapped up work on the latest commission working on the parameters of legalization. Senator Tim Lang, a Republican from Sanbornton, and Senator Becky Whitley, a Democrat from Hopkinton. Thank you so much for both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So let's start out with just your positions on legalization, because this isn't always as black or white as, pro or con. And let's start with you, Senator Lang.
So I actually almost have no position. I think I agree with the governor. It's inevitable. And so under that condition being inevitable, I want to make sure that we have a good, strong regulatory environment that will keep it away from children, keep our public safe, that kind of thing.
So not necessarily a strong yes, but willing to work on it because you think it's coming anyway.
Correct.
Okay. And Senator Whitley, how about you?
Yeah, I've always been very supportive of legalization. I think for a number of reasons. One, it's what our constituents want. We know that 74% of Granite Staters support legalization, and so I think we have an imperative from our constituents to work towards that. I think also we have seen sort of what has happened with marijuana prohibition. We've seen that, the enforcement of that has disproportionately impacted communities of color, and so I think we have an imperative to address that. And also the revenue. I mean, the reality is that we are sending millions and millions to our neighboring states, and so I think we have an obligation fiscally to deal with that.
There was a lot that went on at that last commission meeting, process stuff that we could talk about for days, but I think the public might not be super interested in. Some key takeaways, though, on the franchisee/state control model. The governor only wants 15 storefronts. Senator Whitley, is that realistic?
No, that's a good question. I mean, I do agree with Senator Lang about the importance of having a regulated market for just adult use, and that the ability to have that regulated market allows us to build in those public health protections. I think it's a very important conversation to have about how many stores we want in the state. Is it that, Maine has too many, we want less? We have to think both about, what our communities want, but also we have to have enough stores to make it worth our while, right? We don't want to sort of stifle the potential revenue. And I think the conversation is very important. In the context of the commission, it was really at the very end of the day, on the very last day, that it was brought to us by the governor. So process-wise, I wasn't a huge fan of that.
What about you, Senator Lang? 15 storefronts statewide, is that enough?
So I think it is. Again, this bill stemmed out of 639 this year, and then 1598 from last year. The 1598 was a state-regulated model. We were looking at 10 stores in that bill. So it wasn't, to me, a shock to see that number come forward. We have similar controls under currently therapeutic cannabis, as well as things like sports gaming, right? Number of retail stores. So it's not uncommon for the state to put a cap on something as it's starting it, and then maybe loosening it up if it's appropriate.
Senator Lang, the governor also wanted a ban on what many would say is just pure political speech here from the franchisees or the licensees who end up selling marijuana commercially, essentially saying no lobbying, no political contributions. When we asked him about this in a later press conference, he says, well, we don't let the liquor stores lobby. Not exactly apples to apples, some might argue, but what's your perspective on this idea of banning that kind of political speech?
So I was concerned. I think I said that during the commission, that I was concerned about the free speech model, that we have private LLCs and private businesses that are running a state franchise. But I also understood some of the governor's position, right? This is a state-regulated model. You're the franchisee of the state. So how much lobbying interest should you have to change regulations as well, and laws as well? So I kind of understood it. I do have some concerns about First Amendment. I was trying to understand how that would apply, but I don't think we came to a solution on that, so we will not have to take it up.
What are your thoughts, Senator Whitley? Would that withstand a challenge in court, do you think?
I don't think so. I think that, we have a Supreme Court case on this issue. It's Citizens United. If you disagree or don't disagree with it, it's the law of the land, and so I think there were real First Amendment concerns because of that. And again, this was an issue that was raised at the 11th hour. It was, the concerns that, or the, valid conversation, I think it was just a little too late.
And, you mentioned revenue. What is a realistic amount that you think makes it worth it to do this for the state senator?
I think that's a really good question, and we really don't know what the revenue is going to look like. I think in Massachusetts, the numbers are in the billions. We're talking billions. I don't know that that is going to be the same in New Hampshire, but we do know that a lot of people from New Hampshire go to Massachusetts and bring it back and spend their money there. So I think, you know, the conversation about how much revenue is generated is important, because we know that we want some of that revenue to go to the potential public harms that we're going to see because of legalization. I think that some of that revenue should go to the communities that have been impacted by marijuana prohibition. We had a conversation at the commission about a justice reinvestment fund. You know, one of the reasons why I support legalization is to get rid of those harms that prohibition has caused on communities of color. So I think some of the revenue should go to those communities.
Senator Lang, what about you? Your thoughts on revenue?
Well, so obviously revenue is near and dear to my heart as the chairman of Ways and Means, right? So I don't think the revenue is as big as everyone's making out to be. I don't think this is a panacea is going to fix everything. Again, looking back last year in 1598, the same kind of state-regulated model, we were only talking about roughly $50 million in revenue coming into the state. And then after you took off the costs of what it takes to regulate and everything else, we were looking at $35 million. And I think that's similar to what we're going to be looking at here. The $250 million gross sales model, which will return about $38.7 million in revenue to the state, but not going to fix all the state's problems.
Let's delve into some of the details here. We've talked about some big items, but this commission actually spent a lot of time talking about the concept of public nuisance and, you know, what does life look like with people using marijuana in public? Senator Lang, you know, how far should the state go in penalizing people who want to use cannabis openly and sort of wantonly in a way that, you know, cigarette smoking, public drinking is tightly controlled? What if someone doesn't want to live by the rules there?
So this is where Senator Whitley and I had a little bit of a disagreement going on, was where I understand on the first offense there may be a case of you think it's legal, so therefore it's okay to smoke, and so therefore that should probably be a violation type of offense, right? We're just notifying you it's against the law, you're not allowed to smoke, you're not allowed to do it. But when you start talking about subsequent public consumption violations, where people are sitting for the fourth, fifth time on a state house steps while fourth graders are walking by smoking marijuana, I want much more severe consequences for that. I think it rises to the level of B misdemeanor, A misdemeanor, potential jail time, high fines, because it's not that you're breaking the law consuming, it's that you just don't care about the law. And it's not like cigarette smoke. Again, we have people who have security clearances, commercial licenses, all of these things, and ingestion or even passive ingestion of that could lead to a potential false positive, and people lose their livelihoods because of it. So that tight restriction, I think, is extremely important.
What do you think about that idea, Senator Whitley, on the second offense or third offense, a tougher penalty?
Well, on the first issue, I think we do agree, and I think the commission, you know, was in full agreement that we don't want to see public consumption, that just like, you know, smoking, this is a public nuisance. You know, I have a fourth grader. I certainly don't want him smelling marijuana in public. And so I think we did agree about that. Where we did disagree was criminalizing this behavior. I think certainly we agreed on sort of a graduated set of penalties associated with it, but I certainly don't agree with criminalizing this behavior. This is one of the reasons why I support legalization, because criminalizing this type of behavior disproportionately impacts our communities of color, and I just really don't want to see that as part of this package.
And yet, Senator, on the quality of life side, we see like in states like Oregon, which decriminalized all small possession amounts a few years ago, they've had some issues, you know, public parks, public drug use and things like that, and even people in your own party are saying we went a little too far there. So is there a balance to be struck?
There's absolutely a balance, absolutely a balance. I think in New Hampshire, we have the opportunity to learn from what worked and what didn't work in other states. And, you know, we have the ability in particular to address the very real public health issues. And I think we did a good job in the commission addressing those public health issues and building in those protections. On the public consumption, criminalizing that behavior, we just don't have the evidence that criminalizing that behavior is going to stop it. So what I want to see is a more evidence-based approach to how are we really going to address the problem that has some support behind it.
Senator, do you think Sununu really wants legalization?
That's a very good question. Based on his sort of last-minute interference, both last spring and this year, it doesn't feel like that's something that he really wants.
What about you, Senator Lang? Is it worth giving the governor exactly what he wants. I don't know if it means calling his bluff, essentially, but saying, okay, let's at least try this and move forward, or should this be left to a future legislature, do you think?
So I'm a big believer in incrementalism. I think the governor is okay with legalization, right? But again, he wants to control messaging, he wants to control advertising, the kind of thing we don't want this in the face of our children, right? And so I joke about driving to Massachusetts, and between the New Hampshire border and the city of Boston, I think I passed 15 different cannabis dispensary signs. We don't want that for New Hampshire. And so I think he's in favor of it. He just wants really tight regulations and tight controls on it. If it's going to be inevitable, let's do it. Let's do it in a well-regulated manner. Like I said, some of the issues, the one you talked about donations, that was surprising. But the rest of them, I don't think were that surprising.
All right, Senator Lang, Senator Whitley, thank you for this thoughtful conversation, and I'm sure we're going to see it continue next year at the State House. Appreciate it.